Welcome to the Principles of Performance podcast, where we discuss how to optimize your health, fitness, and performance. Drawing on decades of experience of working as coaches, consultants, and trainers to top performers, athletes, and teens from professional sports to top universities to the U.S. military, Eric DeGatti and Mike Perry discuss topics and strategies of how to perform at your highest level and be your very best. Join us and our friends and colleagues who are leaders in the fitness and performance industry as we investigate and challenge the most popular training, nutrition, lifestyle, and recovery protocols. And away we go. Here we are at the Principles of Performance podcast. I'm your host, Eric DeGatti, along with my friend and co-host, Mike Perry. Mike, it's just you and I today because we have something to talk about. We're going to talk about the state of our industry, the state of the fitness industry.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a little bit, and we've had the opportunity to teach and educate coaches all over the world, and we've learned a lot. So we wanted to discuss kind of where we have seen things recently and some of the trends, and really just kind of step back and take a look at the fitness industry as a whole, and kind of look at it and say, what's missing? What did we notice before? And kind of poke holes in it a little bit, and take a step back and see if there's a way that we can do things better, so we can help our clients, so we can help other coaches, so we can help educate parents, you name it. So it's we're going to be covering a lot of fun things today.
So the idea for this came up. We just got back over the weekend. We were at a big fitness conference where we got to speak. We did 4 talks, plus we had a booth there. And what happens is for Mike and myself, and actually I shouldn't be speaking for you, Mike, on this, but I know for myself that you sometimes get trapped in your silo, and we talk about this, and then you get out and you see what the rest of the world is doing, whether it's in the trenches where you go out and you walk into a public gym, and you see what people are doing, or in this case where you get to see what other coaches and trainers are doing and kind of where they're at. And you make some observations, and that's what we're going to talk about, some of those observations, not only from this past conference, but from other experiences we've had in teaching when we do get out of our little, our little dens and start to see what's going on out there. And that's some of the things you'll hear us talking about today. And the biggest thing is, one of the things I'll like to do is take attendance and kind of get a feel for who's in the room. And the biggest thing you'll notice is post-pandemic is that we have a huge influx of new people into the industry. Now, we had John Rusin on an earlier show, and he gave us some tremendous stats from some of the consulting he does with big, large gym chains, and saying that we lost almost half of our industry of private strength coaches and personal trainers through COVID. And now it's being restocked with this new crop of coaches and trainers. And so when I ask the room, who here has been doing this for 10 or more years? And there's maybe a couple hands. And who's been doing 5 or more years? And a couple more hands go up. And I say, who's been doing this for 2 years or less? And it's probably 70% of the room. And it's not just my observation. I've talked to other people who are other presenters in the field, and they notice the same thing. And so because of that, there's a lot of things that have come along with that. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are some considerations. We're going to bounce back and forth on that. So what's your kind of thought on that, Mike, this new influx of trainers and coaches that we have right now?
They don't know any better yet. They don't have no idea what they're getting themselves into in the fitness industry. Now, I'm just kidding with you. But honestly, so COVID was tough, right? Because it exposed a lot of people. It exposed a lot of businesses, and it was just tough overall. And if you're in the fitness industry and you want to be the best, it's going to be tough anyways. Like, it's going to be really hard because you're going to be busting your ass to try to make it to be the best. And then you add on a global pandemic on top of it. Not a lot of people survived. And I think it's because you have a tough industry, and then you throw in a global pandemic. It really tests your durability. And I think a lot of people had a tough time with that, and they decided maybe coaching wasn't for them because of that really, really tough time. But here's the cool thing. We've got a new batch of people coming in. And as seasoned coaches and as veteran coaches, and this goes for all of you coaches that have been doing out there, we have an opportunity to really educate these people and to help these young coaches because they don't know any better. They don't know the difference between an influencer or someone like Coach Boyle or Greg Cook or Pavel, right? They're getting they're getting information basically on like Netflix, and that's how they're making decisions, and that's how they're getting educated. And it's a really unique situation because the legends, right, the legends of the industry, the people that we were trying to chase, um, it's not that they're not around anymore. It's just these young coaches don't really know who they are anymore, and it's really odd to see. But I think as coaches, we also have an opportunity to help these individuals. So it's a very weird time post COVID for sure.
Well, with that, to follow up that point, that's one of our missions with the podcast is to have these legends on and to try to introduce them to this new generation of coaches and trainers and let them see the brilliance of people like Mike Boyle and like Eric Cressy and Gray Cook and Greg Rose and all these people that we kind of had as mentors coming up. And then the other thing too is that and I had this discussion with you, this observation that I had, and then I asked a lot of of our peers, is that when we were coming up 20, 25 years ago, and if I were to say to you, what was your mission that you woke up with every morning? What was your answer, Mike?
I wanted to be the best strength and conditioning coach in the world. I didn't even know what that meant, but I wanted to be it.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And so if you were to ask that of a lot of the coaches and trainers today, I don't know if you'd get that answer. And it's reflected somewhat in even in the education and the content that's out there geared towards trainers is that they'd much rather be an influencer and they much more think about how many followers and how many, 30-day challenges or how many, how much they can stack up in terms of financial gains and not really being all that concerned with being really, really, really good and being esteemed and respected amongst your peers. And so that changes the game a little bit in terms of being the best. Now, I'm not saying this is across the board. We have some young coaches that are in our mentorship program that are really going against that grain, that want to be the best, that want to stand out. But the big thing that we see is that if you fall into that trap of, the person who's in your DMs or who sends you the Facebook friend request, that's some 21-year-old kid that says they're going to get you 30 leads in 30 days. Like you have to understand, like be able to see through that that's A, it's bullshit. And B, even if it was true and 30 clients showed up at your door, if you're not any good, it's maybe the worst thing that could happen to you because now you got 30 people going around town telling everybody how much you stink. And you're going to become what we call 6 to 24. And whether we're at this conference or talking to coaches and trainers, I can usually spot that 6 to 24 a mile away. What is a 6 to 24? Stats show that a lot of the people that get into the fitness business will be out in 6 to 24 months. And that's what that means. And it's a shame because there were some people who were passionate about helping people that got into our business, got steered in the wrong direction. And because of that, they weren't given a sustainable path and they were set up to fail. And so they're out of our industry. And so we were trying to save people from that. And then the other thing, when we talked to a lot of coaches and trainers who came up to our booth, some of them shared a lot of the same similar struggles that they had hit this glass ceiling, whether it was I'm the best trainer at my YMCA or my box gym, but I don't know where to go next. I'm scared of opening up my own place. I don't know where else I train people. Or I'm very busy and I'm happy with where I'm at. I don't want to become some mogul in the industry, but I don't know how else to grow and I'm getting a little stale and burnt out. And so that was a common theme amongst a lot of the more forward-thinking, successful, professionals that were coming up to us. And, there's a couple answers to that. One, it's going to take a little bit of bravery on your part. You're going to have to, you're going to have the courage to make that decision and you're going to have the talent to back it up is what I would tell you. And once you get there, you have to understand that you have to be perceived differently. You have to separate yourself from everybody else. And the expression that we told a lot of people is you have to be the coach or trainer that people drive past nine other coaches or trainers to get to you.
Yeah.
And when you can get to that point, well, you can charge a lot more. You can also pick your schedule a little bit more because you can be a little more exclusive because you are different, you are special, you are unique.
You know what? You said something earlier, and it just got me thinking too about, the influencer and the coach thing. When you and I started, being an influencer wasn't even an option. There was no job that, even like being a YouTuber, that's a thing now, and it wasn't a thing. So because of that, it made things a little bit more clear on your path in some way, right? And then as we come, into today, an influencer is a job. You can be an influencer, but a coach is not an influencer. A really good coach will make a positive influence, but a coach is not necessarily an influencer. And I think we have to understand the difference, because if a coach does a really good job, they'll make a positive influence. Influencers simply try to make money off of telling people what to do or persuading them, right? And there's a difference. And I just want to make sure that as coaches that, um, if you are the best coach in the world, you will have a strong and positive influence on people. That will be the byproduct of being a really good coach. And then if you want to go down the route of influencing people to do things, cool. But start out by being a really good coach. And I think that's one of the things everybody needs to focus on. And if you continue to do that, it's going to be a huge asset for you.
Now, I was just pulled up a great tweet that Kevin Carr, who we had on the show, um, from Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning and from the CFSC program and Movement is Medicine. He had a great text that kind of, or tweet that he put out about a week or so ago, and it applies really well to this conversation. And this is where the confusion comes from. Where do I get my information from if I'm a young coach or trainer, right? And he said, doctors and researchers, they focus on research, not coaching, right? So the reality is the evidence-based crowd a lot of times aren't in the trenches actually coaching people. And so when and Coach Boyle actually was posted about this the other day as well, talking about, well, the research you have to understand is years sometimes behind what we may be doing in the field. We had my brother was our first guest that we ever had on. He's in research. He has his PhD in physical therapy, and he talked about the drudgery of what it takes to get research published. And so if you're taking all of your information and thinking if there's not research behind it and there's not a, clinically proven evidence-based answer, that it's not true. And there's lots of really successful strength coaches, personal trainers that would fly in the face of that. Then Kevin went on to say, sport coaches train athletes, not everyday people. So if you're someone that is really good at developing athletes, it doesn't mean they're going to be really good at your 45-year-old dad with low back pain or the 40-year-old mom who's looking to change your body composition. Then personal trainers work with general public, not competitive athletes. And that's when you see idiotic posts from personal trainers about, oh, well, why is this athlete getting hurt? They need to be doing this. And it's like, did you ever work with an athlete or a team or understand the demands that this human body is going through before you make those, suppositions? And then, he wraps it up by saying many fitness influencers only train themselves. They're genetically gifted people who most of the times are on steroids and most of the times are under 30 that really the only proof that what they say works is themselves. And so it's very confusing with that information that's out there. Now, on the flip side, if you are the new coach or trainer, how do you distinguish yourself? There's a lot of noise. I laugh when I think back of like what I had to do to promote my gym when we opened in 2002, right? It was literally like diner placemat ads that like somebody's, egg drippings went on. It was newspaper ads that was like used for, people would use to put underneath when they carve their pumpkin. Like there was, flyers you put under a car, which like it was very different than today trying to get your message out in social media where there's algorithms, where there's, there's just so much information coming at people that how do you stand out and distinguish yourself? It's very, very difficult. So I empathize with the coach or trainer who's trying to establish and build a name. And so I still believe the best way that you do that is by changing lives kind of brick by brick and getting people to spread the word about you. And that's not going to get you instant fame. It's not going to get you worldwide. It's not going to get you to become, somebody who's a household name. But you have to understand that a lot of the people that are that are either A, manufactured, or B, they were doing what we're doing first before they got to there.
Yeah, and when you're the best, people will find you. I mean, look, when you come and visit in Massachusetts, where do you go on the way home?
Me
You
personally,
always, yeah, you always go where? Where do you stop on the way home if you can?
if it's on the way, I stop at Mike's Pastry in the North End to get my cannolis.
Why? Because they're the
Because
best. They're really
yeah,
good, right?
yeah,
And so
and there
Eric
was a
goes out
I
of his
went
way.
there Sunday afternoon. There was a line of maybe 100 plus people at 1 in the afternoon on a Sunday.
And it's not because they taste like crap, right? It's because they're really good and people will go out of their way to get a cannoli. I know a guy that does that frequently. So my point is, like Eric said earlier, you want to be that person that will drive out of the way to see you. And that just comes with experience and success and failure. I posted a video today that my favorite video, Steve Martin. They talked about how to be successful in Hollywood. To be undeniably good. Be so good they cannot ignore you. And it's easy to say that's simple, but man, the journey to that, ooh, it's a good one, but it'll get you there for sure. But yeah, you have to be undeniably good. Be a cannoli.
All right, so now with that, you have to understand there's a big difference between authentic coaching and exercise entertainment, right? And I think we confuse a lot of that. And when we talk about how do you distinguish yourself, how do you become what we call the only choice, is you have to distinguish yourself and not get caught up with being exercise entertainment. What do I mean by that? Exercise entertainment is when you literally roll a dice to figure out what your exercises are, right? That is fun. And it may actually have a place if you wanted to just have a fun workout, but that's not getting people results. And that's ultimately what they're paying for. So if that's a small fraction of what you do, that's okay. But if that is what you do, and then there's no difference between you and anybody else. So Mike has over 200 some odd people in a very, very successful adult group training program. There's probably also an F45, an Orange Theory, and a bunch of other group fitness boot camp type things in the area. And how does he stand out and compete against those? Because he's not trying to do just exercise entertainment. If it's just cool exercises and hard workouts, eventually it gets old and I'm going to try somebody else's cool exercise and hard workouts that has a fresh cone of paint and different equipment and different coaches. So really what you have to understand is there's a difference between that and what really authentic coaches is. We had Joe Yeager on a couple episodes ago, and the episode was titled Authentic Coaching. When I posted the episode, if you go into Twitter, literally he had a half a dozen of his clients going on and reposting and saying, Joe changed my life. He's the best person in the world. I'm grateful for Joe. Right. And Joe's doing a lot of what he's doing in a group setting. That is authentic coaching. And that is what moves the needle. That is why you can't get in to see Joe right now. And he's not a 6 to 24 guy. He's somebody that is, as long as he is training people, he will have a line out the door because of who he is and how he treats people. He's not doing exercise entertainment there.
So here's the hard thing: when CrossFit started getting popular, those workouts were very random, and people were starting to do them, and people thought, well, random's good, so we should do random, and it sort of ingrained into a lot of people's minds that you should just come in and it should be different all the time. And if you just if you do a bunch of different things, you're going to get a bunch of different random results. And we had to navigate our business through that because we know that strength training is about consistency, it's about frequency, it's about sets and reps, and there's a lot of science that goes behind it. And we're trying to tell people, look, like if you guys want results, you can't just do a bunch of random things. You say you want to build muscle, but You're only showing up to conditioning classes where you get your butt kicked. So you have to educate people in the process as well, because um, sometimes the most effective things may be a little bit boring. And as a good coach will design things in a way where you get a little bit of everything. Because if it's just simply so boring that people hate it, that's not good. But if it's entertainment, as we call it, where all you're doing is bouncing around and going from circuit to circuit, that's not going to do anything either. So it really comes with the delivery and how you do things, from your actual coaching, your interpersonal skills and your relationship, to the way that you do things and the way that you write programs. I mean, um, it, the best coaches, there's a lot of similarities, and that's what we're trying to do is teach people about those similarities.
There's an art to being able to react and respond and adjust your programming to the individual, and to be able to hear the individual and allow them to feel like they're being heard. But at the end of the day, they want someone to tell them what to do. If they knew what to do, they wouldn't be coming to us. If you went to your doctor and the doctor says, "Oh, I don't know, what do you want to do about it?" Right? Would you trust that doctor more or less? Same, but you'll walk into a lot of training sessions and the trainer will say, "Well, what do you want to do today?" And then if your doctor got out a dice or tapped an app and said, "Oh, you have strep throat. Let's try 3 Lipitor's." And it's like, "No, but I have a sore throat." "Okay, let's roll the dice again." "Okay, let's try 4 Tylenol." It's like, no, like that's just guessing. And that's just, that doesn't work if you want to be considered a professional. And so I was in another talk. It was one of the keynotes this past weekend. And the speaker was talking about the difference between how we're not seen anywhere near the tier of medical professionals. And one of the trainers said, well, because they have much more training, they have much more expertise that they've gone through, their license. And he said, yeah, true. But at the same time, you've kind of created this persona and this image of yourself of what you're supposed to be. There is a place for us, and we're going to jump ahead to the kind of the future of fitness in a little bit. That I think we can be on that same plateau, and it's not pulling them down; it's bringing us up, right?
Yeah.
But I'll get to that in a little bit. So the other thing, in observation, just kind of observations of the state of the industry, there's certain things that I notice that are just kind of really overlooked concepts, that whether it's trainers and coaches or even clinicians are just not getting in principles. I had a really great conversation with a friend of mine who's a director of a large physical therapy group near me. And, she was telling me about some of her struggles are. And when she goes in to see the quote unquote problem patients, or the patients that the cases that are not getting results, she said almost every single one of them is the same story. They keep giving me the same exercises. I never feel challenged and I'm not progressing. And that's just like basic exercise 101. Is like we tell people, you got to be two things. You got to be challenged, you got to be successful. It's simple, you know, progressive overload. The SAID principle of specific adaptation of imposed demand, understanding don't just give random exercises for body parts that may or may not influence what the issue is here, and understand what is the biomotor ability or physical attribute that you're actually trying to train. And if you're trying to build strength, doing 30 clamshells isn't doing that unless you're insanely deconditioned. And so there are some really basic exercise science concepts that are being completely glossed over. And I think that's why a lot of trainers, coaches, clinicians are failing out there.
Well, yeah, they're ignoring the rules of physiology and just, kind of making things up and hoping it sticks. And here's the problem. It's going to stick. I mean, it's not going to stick. It's going to work for 6 to 8 weeks, because anything will work for 6 to 8 weeks. You can run around, I don't know, just run around. You can run around for 6 weeks, right? And get results. And that's the problem. Is anything works for a while until it doesn't, and then you start to get exposed. But you had mentioned concepts like progressive overload, stress and adaptation. It's like, man, people don't know about that. And that's that's really not good, right? And even basic science, right? Basic science. I mean, talk about you talk about the nervous system. People think we're trying to go out of our scope. And I'm like, if you don't know how the brain works, then you don't understand anything about movement, right? And that's just a big part of it. But sometimes we have to go back and almost, forget about the fancy stuff and just go back to the big rocks, right? Like we talk about in our course, The Jar of Life. It's like people argue about sand, but you got to get those big rocks dialed in. So, stress adaptation, the basic concepts of strength and conditioning, huge. But you're right. We just forget about it.
Well, one of the talks we gave this weekend was on the principles of core training. And I said, if I go and evaluate someone's program, and a lot of times I look at team programs that some of my athletes are given, that they'll have, their warm up, they'll have their speed or whatever power stuff, they'll have their strength lifts. And then at the end, it says abs or core. And it's like 100 crunches and it's like 50 V sits or whatever it is. And it doesn't match. It doesn't make sense. Like, what is your goal? If your goal was to build strength, your rectus abdominis and your obliques are big prime mover muscles. And why would we train every other big primer mover muscle that we want to get big and strong and powerful from 2 to 8 reps, yet we think 50 to 100 is going to work for crunches. And if your goal is performance, that doesn't make sense. If your goal is hypertrophy, it doesn't make sense. So it just completely jumps out of the common sense of physiology. Now, something you just brought up, Mike, is another trend that I'm seeing on the other end of fitness. That is, I don't know how it sits with you, but it doesn't sit great with me. We're staying within our lanes and scope of practice. And I have some people that I follow online that are personal trainers, that are or physical therapists that are now pseudo endocrinologists, that are taking people's blood work and reading their hormonal panels, and that are really diving deep into looking into certain things that we're not really trained to do. And so that scares me a little bit. And that on the flip side, as much as the on the low end of the guy rolling the dice to pick exercises, I'm just as nervous about the trainer trying to play doctor when they're not doctors. Hey, everybody, a quick break in the action here. Hope you're enjoying the show and we appreciate you listening. We're working hard to bring you the highest quality content and best guests every single week. So if you could do us a big favor and go and like and subscribe to the show on whatever platform you get your podcasts on, it would be greatly appreciated. Be sure to listen at the end of the show also to find out more information about our courses, as well as a special discount code for all our listeners. Thanks again, and let's get back to the show.
I think a lot of people aren't really concerned about that. I think they just they're not really concerned about necessarily the well-being. They have other motives at that point. But look, if you want to educate yourself, if you're a personal trainer, you want to educate yourself on blood work and hormones and whatever else it might be, science, nutrition, I don't care. Cool, awesome. There is so much information out there, but until you have the actual letters after your name, in which you can do that in a legal fashion, you should be doing it. You're just out of your boundary, and you should not be doing that, right? I mean, it's unfortunate that it happens that way, but man, we've seen it forever. Look at the trends we've seen in the fitness industry. All these strength coaches trying to be all of a sudden be a chiropractor and practice doing applied kinesiology, and then we have this I've seen the trends. I've seen the BS trends day in and day out, and they crash and burn, right? They come in and they get hot and heavy, and then 3 years later, those people are doing a completely different industry because it wasn't based off of scientific principles. It wasn't based off of ethics. It was just, a flash in the pan. And you're going to see that over and over again, right? You're going to see that over and over again. But look, we talk about it all the time. We stay in our lane. We're the type of trainers that people go to as last resort because they've had failed attempts with doctors and physical therapists. And they say to us, hey, I heard you can help. And we have to sit there and go, hey, look, I'm not a doctor. I will do everything I can within my skill set and knowledge to help you, but I am not a physician. So please don't come to me as if I'm healer, but I'm going to do the best thing I can for you because you have had all of these assessments. And sometimes that's what you kind of end up with, but you can't start there. Don't try to be the healer. Don't try to put your hand on someone's head and, ask them to all of a sudden they're going to get magically more flexible. That's just a bunch of BS, guys. So stay in your lane, do the right thing, keep the hammer down, and good things will happen for sure.
Now, where I think you gain the false sense of confidence being the trainer, coach, whoever going outside of your scope is because all you can see is the success. And if you read, you read any health book, you're going to hear about how, Mary had, chronic sinusitis that no one could ever help. And then finally, went to so and so and found out it was about this and changed her diet and did this. And now Mary is flourishing. That's awesome. But you don't hear about the stories of the trainer who told their client to take some supplement and the client died, right? You don't hear those stories. And so you have to be really careful. Like, so even with us with pain, it's a tricky, slippery slope. I'll tell you, I have people come to me, have come with lots of pain issues. And I, like Mike said, right out of the gate, say, look, pain's not really in my wheelhouse, but there are cases where I've helped people get out of pain. How? Because I was able to address a blind spot that the other medical professionals weren't able to get to. And it's not because I'm bashing doctors and clinicians. It is because they don't have the tools or the metrics to gauge these things. A perfect example would be someone comes in and they have low back pain, and then I, after going through their testing, find out that they lack really good motor control. Usually, in most cases, they don't have a metric for that in the medical system. They have metrics for, for range of motion. They have metrics for strength. They don't really have a good metric for stability and control. And so they leave it out. And so you can, you only can find what you're looking for. And so they come to me, we find that that's lacking. We give them some drills for that motor control and the pain alleviates. Now, that's not saying I'm better than a doctor. It's saying I have some things that are available to me that I wish they had more use of themselves. And that's where we can help people with that. It's not, and then also with the understanding that if we go into this, we're going into it with the understanding, and I'm explaining this to the client, that let's try a few things. If this gets worse or doesn't get better really fast, then I'm not the person for you. And also understand that there is a lot of reasons why something can hurt. And we tell these, kind of these stories all the time of, of the kid who came into me and had pain on his shoulder mobility test. Now, there's a lot of trainers and coaches that would have shoved a lacrosse ball behind his scapula where his pain was and would have given a bunch of different stretches and a bunch of corrective exercises. The kid had Hodgkin's lymphoma. He had a tumor, right? And thankfully, I had a system that caught that pain that said, you should probably get this checked out. I'm not the alarmist on the other side, too. Every time something hurts a little bit, I'm not going to rush you off to the doctor. So there's an artful balance to this to say, let's try something and see where it's at. And if it doesn't start moving in the right direction right away, or if it keeps coming back, we need to get this looked into further. And so it's a delicate balance between all of us. And so I'm in the midst of reading Dr. Casey Means' book, Good Energy. And she has a great viewpoint in there where she says modern medicine, the way it is in Western medicine, is really good at the acute and not really good at the chronic. And so I always tell everybody when they say, well, I got more from you than I get from my doctor. I said, well, listen, if you get in a car accident, don't come see me. If you're having a heart attack, nobody should yell, quick, somebody grab a strength coach, because that's what medical professionals are there to do. If you've had chronic ankle sprains, your orthopedist isn't not going to solve that, right? More times than not. And so that's where we have to have an appreciation for where we stand in the picture. And I think the more we do that, and the more we can actually answer those, have solutions to those problems, that's where we level ourselves up. So let's start talking about some crystal ball predictions. So one of mine is in terms of what the future holds in the fitness industry. We can have a bunch of these. One of them is for the coaches and trainers who have the skill set and ability. that they can help someone become more vital, overcome their aches and pains, become more resilient, all those sorts of things. And you are not only not the trainer that doesn't hurt people, but you're the trainer or coach that can get someone from being chronically beat up, sore, tired, lethargic, limited in terms of what they can do, and get them to have that freedom and empower them to feel good. You are going to have people beating a path to your door. And I think there's a place for us on the healthcare continuum that is very, very strong. Now, how do we get to there? Well, there's a lot of, there's a lot of sociological questions with that to say that, we can have a huge impact on the really epidemic levels of people that have musculoskeletal issues right now. The people that are, really looking to try to boost their not just their longevity, but their health span. But then you have the sociological issue of, if you read the book Lifespan, I just finished it, and I'm gonna have to look up the author's name. I apologize to the author, David Sinclair. He brings up the sociological issue of, okay, is this something that's only going to be available from a society-wide, perspective to people who can afford high-level personal training? And it's going to be a huge divide between the people who are well and the people who are not well because they have access to this information and these services. When I talked to my client the other day that's going to a longevity clinic and is going to spend out of pocket tens of thousands of dollars for, concierge medicine and for additional testing that you're not going to get in your standard physical that your insurance company covers. And so he has access to me. And so he has a huge advantage in terms of his overall health that the average person doesn't have. And so it's a tricky thing from a business perspective for us. There's a lot of people with disposable income who are very interested in being proactive in their health, that if you can help that clientele, that you can be a extremely, extremely successful coach in business. On a broader perspective, if we're going to kind of change the world type of idealism, it becomes tricky because how do you then scale that to the people that can't spend tens of thousands of dollars a year on coaching, training, and all the other things that go with that?
Yeah, no, and you're right. But here's what I think is going to happen. I think the best coaches are going to end up being almost like health and wellness consultants because there's going to be so much information unavailable. I mean, so much information available. They're going to need someone that can give it to them straight and wade through it, right? That's just what it's going to be. I mean, Eric, how many times have people asked you about knees over toes guy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's somebody who is very good at tapping into, there's tapping into people's pain points and saying, my knees ache. And he said, just do my exercises, your knee won't hurt. And for some people, it worked. And there was
Well,
enough success stories that he could ride it to a lot of followers and a lot of people going to him, but without really a well-rounded perspective of there's also a lot of people it's not going to work for.
and look, I can't tell you how many times people say, "What do I think of that? What do I think of cold plunges? What do I think of infrared saunas? What do I think of chiropractic? What do I think of stem cell? What do I think of this?" And they're going to keep on peppering you, absolutely peppering you with questions. And the best coaches in the world are going to be able to sit back and go, hold on, like, yeah, I know that cold plunges might be good for this, but maybe they're not good for this. So the answer is actually not yes or no. It depends. And the good coaches will be able to give people sage advice. And that comes through wisdom and experience, not through information, because information is everywhere. So the best coaches are going to have the opportunity to educate people on the right stuff and not make it about them, right? I mean, the best thing I can do is refer my client to a really good chiropractor or a really good physical therapist. And that's not a scarcity mindset. That's just simply saying, hey, look, you've got something that I can't help you with. So go see this person. I got a guy, and they're going to do a really good job with you. And that is how you actually retain clients, is just by doing a really good job, by taking care of them and understanding that there's going to be certain things that you can and cannot do and pass them off. And that, guess what? When they get better, they're going to come back and they're going to stay for longer. And that's how you build your forever client.
So, in terms of the business of fitness and kind of some of the forecasting with it, I don't know how much longer the days of the big box gym are going to last. They'll always kind of be there, but the ability to be financially um, successful with that model. Because what happened was there was the Home Depot influence in fitness, right? What happened was it used to be your privately owned gym fitness club would charge you 40 to 50 bucks a month, and this is 20 years ago for your membership, maybe 30 bucks a month. Then what happened is the LA Fitnesses and the Retro Fitnesses and those places came in and said, look, we're going to charge you $10 to $20 a month. And here was their reasoning, because I talked to somebody who was very high up in one of these companies. Their reasoning was you'll never quit, but you'll also never show up, right? That business model was at 20 bucks a month, you'll look at your credit card and you'll say, you know what? I'll go back next month. Maybe Monday I'll go. It's 20 bucks a month. It's worth it. I'm not going to cancel it. If that was 40 or 50 bucks a month, and you're like, I'm never going, I'm going to cancel it. Then there's also the psychological aspect of that. They know you won't cancel because it's an admission of failure, that I thought this was going to be the answer when I joined, and now it's not. So I have to admit failure and cancel. And there's also, if anybody's ever tried to cancel their membership at one of these places, they put a lot of friction in, so you can't cancel. So you just keep paying 20 bucks a month forever. So they'll have thousands and thousands of members that they hope they never show up. I started a big box gym. We had 4,000 members. If 10% of them showed up one day, they'd call the fire department. They'd have to close. But I think what's happening is people are getting more discerning and they're realizing that is not a service. That is what a big box gym is? Um, a short-term equipment rental, right? I just to go in, getting to go in and use your equipment for an hour and then leave. And so with that, from the business perspective, if I wanted to open up a local gym, it's almost impossible because the same leg extension machine that I want to buy is going to cost me $4,000, but those big conglomerates, because they're buying 100 of them at a pop, can buy it for pennies on the dollar that I can. And they're charging far less than I can ever be able to charge. And so I'm never going to survive. And so even those big companies, because most of them also are real estate holding companies, they can afford to lose. And so those places also, when I say it's a Home Depot model, they came in and they ran out all the local mom and pop hardware stores. And so you have nothing left except this big box gym with really crappy service. I don't know how much that's going to last. I really don't. Especially what's flourishing is places that provide service that people want to keep going back to. Because once you've even had that membership for 6 months, you realize this place sucks, and you go to the other place and you go through it again. Like you can only go through the same people in your town for so long. Whereas now, if you provide service, and COVID was a perfect example of this. Mike, your business grew during COVID. Why? Because it gave them
That
that
was
what Starbucks founder called the third space. It gave them a place where they had community. People are so detached now because of working from home and because of lack of social connection that they're dying for community. We're social beings and they need that community. So if you're a place that can provide community and you provide really good coaching, you're going to have the problem that you have, Mike, where you can't handle all the people that are coming in your door.
well, yeah, and again, and it's a double-edged sword too, because it's like we have incredibly high standards, and we don't just want to bring people and let people come train if we can't do a really good job too. So there's the quality, right? There's a quality of what we're trying to provide. Whereas you talk about the Home Depot model, right? So you say that with Home Depot, like it's a volume approach, and what happens at Home Depot or at Lowe's, right? You go to the back of the store, and they've got the back of the store, and there's just shelves and just shelve the return shit that they don't even care about, right? And they're just trying to get rid of it. And that's kind of what happens a lot of the times with members at a big box gym. You're just the client that just ends up on the back. They don't care. They don't care if you're here, there. You're just on the back shelf. And as long as they get you 20 bucks a month, they're happy. Our gym, My wife emails and reaches out to every member every month. She reaches out personally and emails everyone. It's not a canned email. That's what it takes, though.
So, all right, let's make one or two more crystal ball predictions looking forward from what we've seen, whether it's this past weekend or otherwise, of what's going to kind of happen in the next, 2 to 5 years in fitness. Now, one of the things that I noticed as far as some of the other vendors, right, that I see that are out there, a lot of it is they're not reinventing or building a better mousetrap. They're just selling the same mousetrap from 20 years ago with different features. And so it's like I think I told you it's like 1990s mindset with 2024 technology. And so I think we have a huge segment of our industry that is still trapped in whatever silo and dogma that they were brought up in, and understanding, what and kind of reinventing what fitness is going to really be for those that ahead of the curve type coach and trainer. That if you're still in the mindset that people are showing up to learn exercises and they're showing up for a quote unquote tough workout, it you're going to become a very commoditized thing that is going to have very minimal value, because there wasn't, in when I started 25 years ago, a lot of really high level trainers that distinguished themselves and stood out and really had answers like you talked about before, that could be a resource that is their kind of go-to, not just give me workout person, but go to as my first health resource. I'm going to ask Mike first. Let me ask Mike about this supplement, or what he thinks about this food, or I read this book or whatever. I'm going to go to Mike first, and then Mike is going to kind of direct me. And I've seen it even in pro sports. Pro sports used to have their silos. If you had the strength and conditioning room, which had their coaches, which dealt with all the lifts and all that kind of stuff, and then you had the medical professionals who were in the athletic training room who did rehab. And a lot of times they would butt heads, and a lot of times it was a huge valley between those two things. And then there was other parts of the development process that were never connected. Now what you're seeing in the really successful organizations in pro sports is that they have people who are what are called performance directors, like Eric Cressey with the Yankees, or like we had Rob Butler on, who was doing it with the St. Louis Cardinals, to be able to look and say, okay, based on the individual, I'm going to direct you down a journey that best suits where you're at right now. And I think that's where our place could be, if you're good enough to have that skill set, is to be able to say, okay, you came in the door and maybe you have a goal of this, this, and this, but you're also presenting with this musculoskeletal issue, possibly this metabolic issue, and so forth. And I'm going to be able to have the resources to say, okay, here's what I'm going to handle. Let me get you in touch with my physical therapist or chiropractor. Let's let them handle this. And then let's try this with your nutrition. And if we get to a roadblock, here's where the next professional is. And they're kind of guiding this whole journey, being the GPS to this journey. I think there's going to be coaches and trainers who step up to do that, that are going to be leaders and that are going to be extremely successful, and to be the people that go to will spend money hand over fist for. That is not a skill set that you can just get at a weekend certification. It's just not. And so even with the curriculum that we have, we sell education to trainers, but we've even pivoted and say, we don't want you to just blindly go online and buy our course. Now, if you were just sitting in our workshop and we talked about the 244 warm-up system and you want to go buy that course because you liked it and you want to be able to apply it, great. But if you don't know us and you just found us online, we don't even want to encourage you to go and buy some random course, because it might be like one of the 8 random courses that are sitting on my laptop right now that I've not touched. We want to be able to be able to address you in one of our strategy sessions and say, okay, well, where are you at and where are you looking to go? Because that's going to determine where we place you on our path. That's a very different mindset. That's also this, translated into how someone shows up for a session and saying, what do you want to do today? And give them a workout, versus let me find out everything I need to find out about you. And then let's program accordingly. And I think that's on a lot of different levels where our top end of the industry is going.
Absolutely. And it's just people are leveling up. And that's what we're trying to do with PPD. And that's what we're trying to do in our own careers, right? We've been doing this for over 20 years and we're still trying to get better. Still trying to learn, still trying to have a positive impact on the people that we work with. So it's a never ending journey. And our mentors are doing the same thing. They're trying to get better. They're trying to level up. And that's how it works. And you surround yourself with people that continually want to level up and you just keep hammer down, like good things will happen. But it is a never ending process. It's a never ending process. It's not like you're going to be like, I made it, I'm there. It's just got to keep going, man. And you can help a lot of people along the way. And if you do it right, you make some smart decisions along the way, you can make a decent living as well.
Yeah, and so in conclusion, I think that the net, if you're a young coach or trainer, you're one of these new people in the industry that is looking to level up. I would kind of echo two messages that we've been saying, not only ourselves, but within, if you've been paying attention to some of the guests we've had on, is one, you need to solve a problem. You want to listen to great marketing, listen to Alex Hermosi, and he says, find out what problems that people with money have, and then give them an easy solution for it. And so you have to be able to find out what problem you're solving. And to do that, you have to be able to ask really good questions. When someone comes into you and say, I want to, lose weight, that's not really why they're there. That's why they'll tell you they're there. And if you just go, uh-huh, and you go to the next question, you've already fallen behind. If you say why, and then you keep going why, and then you eventually get to the real why, that is going to be the driver of your program. And then the second piece is being able to be really good at meeting people where they're at. And that comes down to your systems. If we want to talk about shit that failed, right? There was a chain of workout centers that were designed for women. I'll leave the name out. One of my clients went to them and they said, I want to do, once a week with you, but I'm going to do these other workouts during the week. I said, that's great. We need to do something to support it. She said, well, if I don't do this, I'm not going to do it on my own. So this is good for me. So I fully supported it. And then she comes in one day after a session. She's like, my back is killing me from doing the squats at this place. And I watched I said, let me see you do a squat. And she actually did it with really good form. And she said, yeah, but there they have to use so much weight. And I go, well, why don't you just lower the weight? She says, no, you can't. You're not allowed. Everybody does the same thing. They have the machines set up in a circuit. You have a timer, and literally with a lady with a intercom or bullhorn says, go to the next station. Do what you can, and then there's no adjusting the weight. Like talking about the ultimate, most simplistic way of meeting somewhere where they're at, you could not adjust the weight to meet what her ability was. And so because of that, she's like, I'm quitting. I keep getting hurt. They won't adjust the weight for me. Like that's talking about concepts 101. And so that's a really microcosm of a bigger thing of being able to meet people where they're at, being able to understand, I'm going to put you in a position where I'm setting you up for success. A lot of times what we're doing is we're setting people up for failure. Yeah, you can kick their ass and you can make them do 100 burpees and it'll be tough and it'll be a story they'll tell for the next day or two, but that's not going to be the story they tell for the rest of their lives. And that's what you need to be if you're going to really have a sustainable career, and you're not going to be a 6 at 24. So look, there are fads, there are trends, but service never goes out of style, right? Um, I still, when we talked about Home Depot, anybody ever go to Home Depot and have a really great experience at Home Depot? Not really. How many times you go to Home Depot and I can't find anybody to help me? And the person who helps me, I went into Home Depot yesterday to return something. The person at the return desk was watching a TV show on her phone, and I stood there for 2 minutes, 5 feet away from her with no one online behind me while she watched her TV show,
I'll
right?
be asking for a raise soon.
And meanwhile, if I go to the local hardware store that I don't know how they're still open, but thank God they are, go to a local hardware store. He asks me about my day, what I'm doing this weekend. I love that guy. I will
Yeah.
buy extra stuff that I don't need just because of him. And so service doesn't go out of style. So if
No.
you can understand what people need and truly solve their problems. And that comes down to asking good questions and having good communication skills. And you can meet people where they're at, which comes down to really good systems and checklists. You can have a really good, successful career. So, with that, any closing thoughts before we wrap up today, Mike?
No, no. I mean, we covered a lot, and you're going to see a lot of similarities and redundancies in what we're saying. But it's a constant journey, and I think you got to be passionate about it, and you have to strike that balance of making sure that you're always learning, and making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that have been where you've been, and it's a great industry. You can change a lot of lives, and we can help you guys. That's what we're trying to do. So appreciate you all.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for listening. And this has been the Principles of Performance podcast. Thank you for listening to the Principles of Performance podcast. If you've enjoyed our content, please like and share on your social media outlets, as well as subscribe and give us a review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your preferred platform is to listen to. For more information on the Principles of Program Design courses and workshops, visit us at www.principlesofprogramdesign.com and follow us on all of the social media channels where we post new content every day. To save 10% on any PPD courses, enter the discount code PRINCIPLESPODCAST10 at checkout. If you have any questions we can answer or suggestions for the show, you can email us at info@principlesofprogramdesign.com or message us on social media. Thank you again for your support.